What is good, everybody? Splitgate 2 is here, and you can play it right now. If you go to the Splitgate 2 Steam page and request access into the alpha, it's going until the 25th. I only had to wait an hour or two to get into the next wave, and I've been playing it, and I'm super excited. If you're new to the channel, Splitgate 1 is one of my favorite FPS games of all time. I played a ton of it, I uploaded a ton of it, and really enjoyed that game from the very start, and I think they have something that is very special. Now, Splitgate 2, I've been eagerly anticipating what it's going to be like, how it's going to feel, and honestly, when I saw that initial cinematic reveal about a month ago, I think, or whenever it was, I was apprehensive because of the faction abilities. So this game has factions, and each of the factions have their own unique abilities. One, like Meridian, can let the team see through walls and highlights all the opponents, kind of like Promethean vision from Halo 4. Sabrask can throw down a drop wall where you can shoot through it, but the enemies can't, very similar to Halo. And then Eros has this like health regen speed boost thing, and the ability to like close portals with his little disc and all that stuff. And so immediately, yeah, I had flashbacks to Halo 4 and Halo Reach when abilities were added into the mix, and I call me old-fashioned, but I don't necessarily think in arena FPS you need that. But I also know I love Splitty 1, and I just want to go in with an open mind and test it out. And playing today, I can definitely say they have been able to continue one of the great trends they had in Splitgate 1, and that is the gunplay. In Splitty 1, gunplay was amazing on both mouse and controller. Shooting and taking opponents down felt really good, better than a lot of other AAA FPS games. The gun feel in that game was substantially better than a lot of stuff that's out there. And that's important. If that's the main backbone of your experience, shooting and takedowns and playing the base game should be really fun from that perspective. And Splitgate 2 has that. It feels really good to shoot. The weapons feel nice. They look great. The reloads, the animations, everything feels very polished for a game that is coming out next year. I'm hoping we're going to get like a full-on beta before that time, because the game obviously does feel like it's in a state where you could keep like an alpha or a beta up for a pretty substantial period of time. But I will tell you, it is very different when it comes to the movement. They have slowed down the movement substantially. Everything feels much weightier. There's more inertia. Shifting directions is different. Carrying momentum is a little shifted. You can still do your momentum portal plays, which I'm very thankful that still exists. The jump jets are still there. So when you jump, you can use your jets to go up a little bit, or you can use it kind of like Destiny, where you maintain momentum with the jump jets, and those feel really good. But the crouch slide really stalls your movement. It feels like it's tough, or I haven't mastered how to slide and maintain momentum. It seems like it's a good way to hit the brakes and slow down. But ultimately, just moving throughout the sandbox is a lot slower. Splitgate 1 could have a floaty kind of feeling, but once you got used to it, I thought it was really nice for strafe battles. And I think, I'm just going to guess, it's very intentional, everything that they've done with Splitgate 2, to try and capture a larger audience. They had immense success with Splitty 1, and they had a hard time keeping it sticky for a lot of those players. So huge round of funding comes in. They have tons of veteran FPS talent on the team now, and I imagine they're bringing all of the expertise and the data and the focus group knowledge they've learned from these other games, because it does feel like, you know, the abilities, and now you can customize your weapons a lot like Call of Duty. All of these things you can see traces in other FPS titles over the last 7-8 years. Whether they fit or not, I'm just going to say for me personally, the class abilities or faction abilities, I'm not really feeling it yet. They kind of feel like they're just there. Nothing's egregious. Nothing feels like terribly off, but they feel like they're just sort of there to tick a box and be like, yeah, well, we've got the abilities and we can add new character archetypes down the road. Again, I'm not going to say it's bad, and I'm an old school outlier person who likes arena FPS. I like super fast, old school Quake style games, and Splitty 1 really emulated a lot of those tendencies. And with Splitgate 2, the game modes that you're playing, there's long respawn times, and it feels more objective, and yeah, you complete rounds, and then you can change your loadout and like change which weapons you're using, and that obviously is a very substantial shift from traditional arena FPS stuff and vibes. I mean, In Team Deathmatch, the respawn time is like, what, 7 seconds? It feels like an eternity, and it's kind of like Gears of War TDM, where your team has a limited life pool, and when it runs out, you lose round over, and then you go into the next round. So yeah, it's different. It's slower. It feels different, and I know it has to probably be strong attempts to get this wider net of FPS players to play the game and stick with it. And I'm not going to say that's a good or bad thing. It's up to whatever the player, resonates with and whatever gives the success to the game, right? I will also say this, Splitgate 1 took some time before it really hit its stride. They really iterated on that game and changed it a ton over time. And for me, I lived in TDM, Instagib, and Shoddy Snipes. Those were the 3 modes I played all the time. Some Infection here and there, but I loved those modes. So I'm sure at some point Splitgate 2 will probably add more of those arena FPS modes and less of these like objective, slower based, It's not search and destroy, but it definitely feels more round based like that. That's another thing I'm really confident in. By the end of Splitty 1's development time, it had a map maker mode that was really good, and the community was putting in really cool maps. They did a no portal mode that was pretty fun. The game had replay support, it had a custom game browser, it had a bunch of different varied experiences that made it really fun. And the developers listened closely to the community for the most part, I feel like, and did a good job progressing and changing the game and improving it. So I'm sure Splitgate 2 will probably follow the same path. It is funny. When I look online, I look on Twitter, and I see people's reception for Splitgate 2. I've seen the same thing, where there's a few clips of good competitive players using the portals in the game, the way the competitive scene uses the portals, which is like a lot of portal spam, a lot of triple portaling, a lot of moving around the map really quickly. And oftentimes, like, a newer player sees that and they're like, too much. Portals need a cooldown. I can't handle this. The portals are, not my favorite part. They need a no portal mode, all that stuff. And man, I just get bummed when I see that because, hey, a lot of those clips where they're just straight up spamming portals, there's multiple reasons to do that, whether you're covering your own like portal walls so they can't flank you, or you're just giving yourself movement options. Like 99% of the player base is not going to interact with players like that who are triple portaling all over the place, right? There's a small subset of the ultra skilled players who are doing it. Here's the thing. If you're on mouse and keyboard, bind your portal, mouse wheel up, mouse wheel down, okay? So you can just easily move around the map all over the place. Make sure you can close the portals. Once you start playing with the portals, the game becomes so different, so much fun. And the map team that they had on Splitgate 1 and the maps that they're putting into Splitgate 2, at least seem so far, they are doing a great job of building palettes that really allow you to explore and use the sandbox effectively if you're portaling. I guess what I'm just trying to say is I hope people don't just out the door go, I don't like the portals, I'm out of here till there's a no portal mode, because it is such a fun part of the game. I want to see Splitgate 2 succeed. I want to see it do really well. I'm just going to be brutally honest. I lean more towards the sandbox of Splitgate 1, enjoying that movement style, the more traditional arena FPS game modes, than I do potentially this direction with the faction abilities and the loadouts and your attachments and the perks and all those things. But I sound like a grumpy old grandpa, so I'm going to continue to have an open mind. The game's free, so it's one of those things like, hey, play it when it's fun. If you enjoy it, continue. And if not, just wait for updates, changes, and check it out then, That's kind of been my motivation over the last 6 months. If I'm not enjoying something, I'm not going to just force myself to play it. I had a good time trying the alpha. I'll play it a little bit more, but it's definitely not the same vibes that I had with the way Splitgate 1 moved and felt. I will say, though, the game is absolutely gorgeous. The artwork, the art design, some of the concept art they have on the website, it's really cool. And I know I'm going to be playing a decent chunk of Splitgate 2. Let me know what you think about the game, the footage, everything so far. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. I really appreciate everybody watching. I hope you have a great weekend ahead, and I will talk to you again on Monday.